We've all experienced some moments in video games that have impacted us in some way. Maybe it's when you get the Master Sword in The Legend of Zelda, or maybe it's when you find out that Samus is actually a really swell girl. In this top 20 list, I'll share my favorite video game moments, with some honorable mentions that just missed the main list. Some are big, some are small. If you have some moments that I don't mention on this list, be sure to comment them down below. And also, here are the games that will appear on this list. So don't go watching if you haven't played them or know what may appear. Let's start with those honorable mentions.
Round one, fight! Tiger! Hadouken! Hadouken!
We're going to start off with a classic game, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past is arguably one of the best games ever made, and thus, there are a lot of memorable moments in this work of art. I have always felt that you should enjoy the little things in life, and I'm not alone when it comes to that regard, as shown by the man under the bridge. Amidst the vortex of conflict throughout the world of Zelda, it's sometimes important to also just relax and let the worries flow away. Aside from giving you one of the 4 valuable bottles, he shows us and Link how to take the day as it comes and not worry all too much about the things that may happen. There have been an obscene amount of Super Mario games produced to date. They're all special in some way, either through the imaginative mechanics or features, or they look totally different from one another. The last Super Mario game that I experienced with the eyes of a child, the eyes of someone that still had hopes and dreams for the future, was Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii. My mom surprised us all by swagging in randomly around Christmas with a brand new Wii console, and we were all blown away by the amazing little box. In Super Mario Galaxy, simply walking around the observatory felt like a dream come true, even though there isn't much to do there. The thing is, I love space. It's a thing of wonder and fear, an interesting mix, to say the least. That combined with atmosphere and that Mario shine makes it one of my favorite moments in gaming. Of course, we cannot forget the old Castlevania games. I know, big surprise, a Castlevania related thing in one of my videos. I thought about what I really liked about the first game for quite some time. I thought about picking the ending, finding a perfectly clean, cooked pork chop hidden in the wall, or walking across the rooftops in stage 3. After 5 minutes I decided. One of the most iconic things in the Castlevania games, especially the earlier ones, is walking up the stairs to Dracula. It's a moment oozing with atmosphere and tension. You know what's to come, you know what you have to do, and you couldn't be more ready. It's time to do this. While the ending is relaxing too, feeling accomplishment of having conquered the game. There is nothing more iconic and nostalgic about the Castlevania series than walking up those moss-covered stairs. So, Chrono Trigger. Pretty influential game to say the least. If I'm going to be completely honest, I haven't played it. I realize what I have missed, and unfortunately I've seen other videos about Chrono Trigger, stating and reinforcing its grandeur. Thus, I've also been spoiled a lot. One such scene is the campfire scene. The whole crew gathers around to celebrate Robo's 400th anniversary. It has everything: character development, philosophical musings on our existence and the world, and an amazing atmosphere. Nothing else is needed for a moment to become an important memory. My first interaction with the legendary Fire Emblem series was when I was, I don't know, maybe 11, 12 years old. I found a 500 SEK bill, which is around 50 euro, on the street just outside our local supermarket. My inner justice wanted to turn it into the police. I was 12 and stupid, give me a break, you know. But on the other hand, I was a kid who loved video games. 15 minutes later, I walked out with this new Game Boy Advance game, Fire Emblem. It sounded cool, the cover was amazing, and by Satan himself, it was good. And I played it like a teenager pleases themselves after discovering pornography. Every day. It had epic moments, moments of intrigue and moments worth remembering, but nothing triumphs the moment you crush Nergal in the final chapter of Light. First having to defeat his generals, Morphs who he has resurrected with amazing music and awesome weapons, is a trial in itself. But then, the dialogue, the music, and Nergal's backstory, everything is memorable, and it easily makes it one of my favorite moments in gaming. Ever since I tried out Megaman Battle Network, I've loved the series. I naturally started out with the first game, got tired of it, played the second game halfway through, then jumped forward to 4, 5, then 3, and then 6. I like all games, but if I would have to rank them, it would be, from worst to best, the first game, the second game, the sixth game, the fifth game, the fourth game, and the third game. Even though I know people generally disliked 4 and 6, I liked them. Even so, this spot goes to game number 4. If there's one thing they nailed in the fourth game, it's the theme of darkness, the inner struggle in Megaman himself. This culminates in the end, before the final fight against Duo, when he draws out your inner shadow and the fight against yourself begins. Not only is this an interesting and semi-challenging fight, the music is what really draws you in to fully appreciate what happens on the screen. The Battle Network games are truly hidden gems, and I've gotten many great memories from them. Journey is one of the most aesthetically beautiful games ever made. I think the simplicity of the game makes the player appreciate the game world and art more. It's genius. While the game may be a bit short, it's filled to the brink with dazzling dunes of sparkling sand and crumbling stone of old civilizations. But my favorite moment in the entire game is when the quiet traveler is surfing through the golden sand. Nothing makes me relax more than gliding over the soft sand, sun shining in the background, beautiful music echoing in your ears. Perfection. It's a game that's worth your time, if only to experience something different for once. And if you happen to enjoy it, there's also Abzu, Flow, and my personal favorite, Flower. Amidst the many action-jammed games out there, it's nice to sometimes just sit back and unwind for a bit. Soma is a game that almost flew under my radar. See, we had this gaming party where we just game for 5-6 days straight and maybe drink some, or a lot. It was a surprising journey, but while we expected a mediocre game, it cost around $8, what we got surprised us all, I think, and it culminated in one of the best yet most bittersweet endings I've seen in a video game. Hence why number 13 on this list is Soma's ending. There's a clear theme throughout the game, and it becomes more and more apparent as you progress. It irks me to this day, in more than one way. However, it's well worth your time, and it's one game that have stayed with me ever since, and will always do. This one is kinda short, but Majora's Mask is one of the best goddamn video games of all time. That's a fact. This moment is actually the very reason I started with this list. So it's strange I've only placed it on the 12th spot. Let's not beat around the bush. Being in the Astral Observatory is a curious thing. The comforting and dreamy melody of the soundtrack is just listen to that. Crack it up! Simply being inside the Astral Observatory makes one forget about the outside world and its problems, if only for a moment. Majora's Mask also has a lot of memorable moments, but this one stuck with me for some reason, and it's, to this very day, one of my favorites. Probably my second favorite fighting game series is Soul Calibur. Tekken is my favorite, but Street Fighter was first, until they started to become greedy fucks. A video is coming on that later, I promise, I'm already working on it. Anywho, while Soul Calibur 6 reinforced my hope for future epic games in this series, Soul Calibur 3 has always been my favorite. The multiple paths arcade mode, the weird but addictive Chronicles mode, and the ability to create your very own character with unique movesets and weapons. All this is great, but the most memorable moment for me was the battle between Siegfried and Nightmare in the cathedral. Unknowingly walking in and seeing these two warriors cross blades is breathtaking. So alike, yet complete opposites of one another. The cherry on top of this is of course the epic music with the ever heroic trumpet in the center role. The game itself is a masterpiece and I'll never forget it. The legend never dies. Yes, the Pokémon games. They're undeniably impactful games, each selling a buttload of copies. I started my personal journey a fateful Christmas back in 2002, I believe. I got a Pokémon Gold for Christmas with legendary Pokémon already caught and everything already done. Hell no, I thought, as I wiped the save and started anew. Hours upon hours later, after grinding my Pidgeotto to level 28 before Violet City, my journey started for real. Yes, I really did that. I conquered what I then thought was everything, including the Elite Four and finishing off with Lance. I was finished with the game, right? I surfed a bit to the right of my house in game and bam, I was met with a fat dude who told me to check my map, because I had now entered Kanto. My mind was blown into pieces. Just a few steps away from the starting point, the player can find the entirety of Kanto with all Pokémon, gym leaders and nostalgia. If this isn't an epic fucking moment, I don't know what is. Next one. Imagine this. You're playing the Super Nintendo in your dimly lit room. You sit on the floor. It's dark outside. An ice-cold cola sits beside you, ready to be opened and devoured. It's Friday. What game are you playing? Donkey Kong Country 2. Life is good. But suddenly... Bramble Blast. Fucking shit. This soundtrack is legendary. The enjoyment of the game just tripled. The first game is also amazing. In fact, all three of them are, even though the last game is... yeah, it's a bit special. They each hold a special place in my heart, for various reasons, and I'll never forget them. Sticker Bush Symphony, yes, not Sticker Brush, Sticker Bush, is actually one of the best soundtracks ever made. I have heard a lot of people say that Final Fantasy 15 is a disappointing game. Well, I disagree. I loved Final Fantasy 15, despite it not being perfect. The long, struggling journey of the four bros is something amazing, and you actually care about these characters in the end. Maybe not so much about Luna herself, unfortunately, but at least about Prompto, Gladio and Ignis. And that's exactly what takes up the 8th spot on this top 20. The ending. Well, not really. It's what essentially happens after the ending. More specifically, the campfire scene that happens before the final showdown. If you've spent many hours playing this game like me, getting to know the squad, the scene will only get more impactful. I'ma be completely honest, some tears were shed, that's for sure. I'm gonna miss these Backstreet Boys considerably, and I might even make a retrospective video about Final Fantasy 15 in the future. You never know. Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time. Top 3, easily. As such, I've got plenty of moments from the game that I distinctly remember, and will always do. Slaying Gascoigne on my first try with a pulse of 200. Finding the abandoned old workshop. Ludwig's second phase. Entering Lady Maria's astral clock tower. But alas, none of them will ever reach the majestic height as when you refused Gehrman's final offer, his mercy. Never before have someone so frail and old gone from an old gentleman to fear-inducing nightmare. He is the first hunter after all. Then he stands up, clutches tight around his sights, and the fight begins. This gets emotionally heavy, more so than the difficulty, especially if you consider Gehrman's background, story, and his extreme suffering through ages. Nothing in Bloodborne will ever top the emotional clash of blades between master and student in a field of white, asphodel flowers. I recently played through Demon Souls here on my channel, blind. Actually, that was almost a year ago. I'm glad I went back and experienced this game. It was quite interesting to see the game that eventually would inspire Dark Souls, another masterpiece in gaming. Demon's Souls is less fleshed out when it comes to the silent storytelling, yet it's not bad. My favorite part was when I ventured down the Valley of Defilement and happened upon Garl Vinland, protecting the archdemon Estraya. In contrast with other archdemons, this wasn't exciting or filled with heroic action. No, this was a tragedy, an unavoidable one at that. In the lowest depths of the valley, where all hope is seemingly lost, the duo tries to help and offer sanctuary to the abandoned. Yet her soul is referred to as the most impure of them all, which makes one wonder what being impure really means. If you kill Garl, Estraya doesn't fight back. Instead, she laments you before ending her own life, leaving you in shambles. A truly unique boss fight. Top 5 and 5 for 5. Arguably the game that started this channel and made me really love doing videos was of course Persona 5. It took me around 100 hours to finish the game during my first playthrough, not even doing anything else really. So naturally, there's lots of room for amazing moments. My favorite moment is, without a doubt, the reveal of the fake Igor and the subsequent freeing of the real one. Throughout the game, the fake one had this ominous side to him that Igor never had, despite his grim looks, and he called it his Velvet Room, something that Igor never does either. I was disappointed that they found a new voice actor for him, because I really liked Daniel Warren's portrayal, but this was all fixed, kinda. The introduction of the real Igor, the contrast between the fake and real one's voice, and the ever-stellar aria of the soul piece in the background equals enormous goosebumps. If you like Persona 5, a special video is in the works to satisfy that itch, and it's gonna be amazing. Valiant Heart is one of the best games ever made, especially if you consider its asking price. Instead of being full-on serious, the game has a more goofy, light angle, directly conflicting with the serious theme of the game. Yet surprisingly, this works really good. The 4 main characters each have a distinct experience during the game, and they're all well thought out and interesting. A lot of the story is told through letters, but nothing hits harder than first thinking everything ends happily before Marie, the daughter of Emile, receives the last letter written by her father. It's revealed that Emile has been sentenced to death for accidentally killing an officer that forced his squad to charge into certain death, which Emile refused to do. What follows is a 3-minute long walk that goes on seemingly forever, where Emile narrates the letter he sent to Marie before being executed by a soldier for his treachery. The beautiful backgrounds, combined with the incredible voice acting by James Berryscale, would have been enough to draw out my tears, but no, they had to add a somber piano too. If you don't cry when you see the end of Emile, then goddamn, you must be a heartless. Super Mario World is, again, one of my favorite video games. It's a game I grew up with, and thus I mastered the game over the countless playthroughs I've done. Not even bragging. But the game is always a safe bet of having a good time, because it's pure quality through and through. Super Mario World is one of the few games that my dad enjoys playing, the other being Donkey Kong Country. I remember sitting down and playing for a couple of hours together, one of my most cherished memories. The highlight for us was when we discovered the hidden Star World, another 5 levels among the sky, full of mystery and atmosphere. It's also here that you can find and raise the special Yoshis. I think why I placed it so high on the list is partly due to the amazement when finding a new, unexpected thing. but more so the memories of my dad and I just sitting in front of the TV and mashing away at our controllers. If I could just go back for one moment, I wouldn't hesitate. Now for the second one. Final Fantasy X was a huge leap forward in terms of graphics, voice acting and gameplay, despite what personal opinions you have about the game itself. The characters had some serious depth, each with an interesting story and part in the main storyline. They felt more alive in a natural way, which only makes the ending more bittersweet. Among the satisfaction of having destroyed Yu Yevon, the creator of Sin, and having started the Eternal Calm, the story is a bit confusing but extremely interesting. You should check it out if you haven't. The fact that Tidus, one of the main characters and love interest of Yuna, is a dream of the Faith himself is made clear. He then has to move on himself, as he isn't a part of this world anymore. This is made worse when Yuna tries to stop him, runs towards him and faces through him, before rising and stating that she loves him. Damn, it's just such a good scene. I always get emotional when I see it. The credit roll a while later has one of the best accompanying soundtracks of all time, Suteki Dane. Nobuo Uematsu, you genius bastard, I love you man. Such a swell guy. Final Fantasy X is a must play in my book. Final Fantasy VII is a magnificent game, so if you know about it, you probably know what the number one spot will be. It's a complex game that has a convoluted storyline that may be hard to follow at times. The relationship between Cloud and Aerith is a strange one. Cloud believes himself to be Zack Fair, former soldier and companion of Sephiroth. Thus, he also feels strongly for Aerith herself in some way. Well, too bad. The death of Aerith may very well be the most impactful death in video gaming. Before you release the Kraken upon me, let me explain. And sit tight, because this will be a bit lengthy. I suggest you pop some popcorn perhaps. Open a Coca-Cola too maybe. Or a burn. If you don't want to see this, or listen to me ramble on for a few minutes, I highly implore you to skip forward those few minutes if you don't need to hear this. Also, the main video is made by Xygor Gaming, which is well worth checking out as it contains the complete story on Final Fantasy VII. Now hold on to your seat. Cloud Strife is a character with many hardships. His dad dies when he is young and he experiences a very lonely childhood. During a climb up a mountain, Tifa, a girl whom Cloud had a crush on before, fell and injured herself badly, leading to the villagers not liking Cloud very much as they assume it was his fault. He later learns of Sephiroth, the legendary Shinra soldier, and Cloud decides he's gonna become a soldier himself. He fails and becomes a simple infantryman instead. After a while he meets Zack Fair and befriends him. Some time passes and they're both sent out to Nibelheim, Cloud's childhood home, to investigate a damaged Mako reactor. Cloud feels embarrassed about his failure, so he hides his face, especially from Tifa. They all, including Sephiroth, reach the reactor and discovers the wicked experiments of Professor Hoyo, Sephiroth's real father. They also discover Genova, an extraterrestrial life form responsible for the near extinction of the ancient Cetra race, Friends of the Earth, which Sephiroth believes to be his mother. Sephiroth then locks himself in the basement of an abandoned Shinra manor for 3 days, where he finds information about the Genova project and believes her to be the last of the Cetras. Since he thinks he is Genova's son, he goes mad and swears revenge on the traitors of the ancient Cetras, the humans, resulting in him setting Nibelheim ablaze and slaughtering people left and right. Cloud then watches his mother burn before his very eyes. Zack Fair pursues Sephiroth to the reactor, where he finds a knocked out Tifa and he himself confronts Sephiroth. He loses to him and is knocked out. Enter Cloud, who've been following them both. He takes the iconic Buster Sword and stabs Sephiroth. He then goes to move an unconscious Tifa aside. Sephiroth emerges from Unova's chamber, carrying her severed head, and Cloud pursues him. Cloud attacks Sephiroth again, but gets stabbed himself by Sephiroth's Masamune. Cloud gets Hulk strength for some reason, and throws Sephiroth into the live stream of the planet, where he is consumed by it. The remaining trio lay unconscious until Sangan, Tifa's trainer in martial arts, discovers them and recovers Tifa. When he returns for Cloud and Zack, Shinra has already appeared. Professor Hoyo learns of what went down and decides to inject Zack and Cloud with Sephiroth cells, turning them into Sephiroth clones, whose wills can be overwritten by Sephiroth. Shinra then cover up the incident. Due to all this, Cloud develops Mako poisoning, or more accurately, livestream poisoning, and gets put into a cryogenic state alongside Zack, and they're both left in the basement of the Shinra Manor. 4 years later, Zack escapes his confinement and frees a vegetative Cloud, giving him a soldier outfit as his old clothes are soaked in Mako. At this point, Cloud is very delirious and weak. A year passes, and after many events happen to the duo, they arrive outside Midgar. Zack has cared for Cloud the entire time pretty much, despite Cloud being almost helpless. Suddenly Shinra forces catches up with them and a battle ensues. The overwhelming odds resulted in Zack getting gunned down after a long struggle, but the soldiers leave Cloud as he is of no threat. Cloud regains some form of consciousness and crawls over to the dying Zack, where he entrusts his Buster Sword to Cloud and tells him that he'll be Zack's living legacy before dying. Due to this trauma and what happened before, Cloud undergoes a transformation in which he creates a new reality. Zack's memories and fighting abilities merges with his own memories and his ideal picture of himself as a soldier. Cloud shoulders his new persona as Truth, a truth in which he joins Soldier and becomes Sephiroth's partner. Zack never existed. A while later, the events of the main game begins. After that, a lot of shit happens, and Sephiroth decides to summon Meteor by the power of the black materia to critically wound the planet, forcing the livestream to try to heal the planet, thus allowing him to absorb its energy and become a god. This sounds crazy, but bear with me. Aerith, who was Zack's former love interest, and coincidentally the last of the Cetro race, discovers that Cloud has adopted a close resemblance to Zack and asks to meet the real him. When they learn of Sephiroth's plan, Aerith decides on trying to summon Holy, the only force capable of stopping Meteor. She leaves the others in the middle of the night and goes to pray at the City of the Ancients. As she is the last Cetra, she hopes she can summon Holy to stop Sephiroth's plan. The party mysteriously awakens and goes to search for Aerith, feeling relief when they find her unscathed. Cloud suddenly becomes possessed by Sephiroth's cells and tries to attack Aerith, but is able to pull himself together. Aerith stops praying and they both look at each other. All is at peace. From nowhere, disaster strikes. The scene changes before the player is able to realize what is about to happen, only lending to the feeling of helplessness and shock. Sephiroth drops down from the sky and his sword impales Aerith and she dies. This all happens so fast and unexpectedly that time seemingly stops. The timing is perfect and no music plays during this scene. What makes everything worse is the fact that Aerith is praying in a place of sanctuary, a place of non-violence, where a person is supposed to feel safe. In fact, it's even worse. She was not only praying, but she was praying for the only thing able to save the planet, showing the lack of mercy that Sephiroth holds. Sephiroth have now destroyed the seemingly last hope of the entire world. He lets Cloud think everything will be okay, and then bam, destroys the tiny piece of hope he has left. And for the third time in his life, the most important person in Cloud's life dies before his very eyes. Aerith, The most bright, cheerful and kind person in probably the entire world is the one that gets killed. She was even a part of your crew before that, so it's a very strange feeling. And she wasn't only killed in a sanctuary, she was sanctuary herself. The absolute opposite to pain, violence and death. As the last people of the Citra, she symbolizes and affects the health of the world, a running theme throughout the game. Humans are shown to be bad for their planet, while the Citra, and therefore also Aerith, represents life and hope. As long as she is around, flowers can grow even in the most depressing parts of the world, and hope will always remain. Therefore, Sephiroth not only commits genocide, but he kills the literal embodiment of the planet's life force. He killed the only thing that made everything better. He put out the last light in a world of darkness. Aerith collapses in Cloud's arms as her ribbon unravels, and the white materia previously concealed in her hair bounces into the water below. Cloud brings her body to the water outside the sanctuary and releases her body into the water, and Aerith becomes a part of the planet. This part also sets off the events where Cloud eventually finds and in time accepts his true self, so it's a very defining and important moment. Imagine playing Final Fantasy VII as a young teenager, blind, and this happens. I'm going to be honest, I just sat in front of my TV, staring blankly for minutes, trying to realize what had just happened and my inability to stop it. What the player doesn't know is that through the unique white materia in her hair, at the time, Aerith manages to actually summon Holy before dying, and later on, her spirit commands the live stream to emerge from the planet, and along with Holy, destroys Meteor. This became longer than I expected, but I wanted to really hammer home the importance of her death. It was also one of the first, if not the very first time, that the game had introduced a playable character into the game, letting the player emotionally invest themselves into that character before killing that character for the entire game and subsequent future. It's my absolute favorite moment in a video game ever made, and I will never forget it. Which is strange because it's both sad and joyful at the same time. And there you have the list. If you managed to get this far, I salute thee. I also believe that you have some epic moments, as I said before, so write them down in the comments below, and I'll be sure to read them all. If you like this vid, be sure to subscribe, because I have a long way to go before I stop, if I ever will stop. Well, I will when I die, but before that, you understand. I'll see you in my next video, and I hope you have a good one.